Mr. President, I come to the floor today to talk about the Biden administration's war on American energy. Over the last 2 years, Joe Biden's energy policy seems to have been based on two principles. One is restricting American energy production, and the second, regrettably, is a policy that benefits China. Time and again, Joe Biden's energy policies have hurt America and have helped China. On Joe Biden's first day in office, he shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, and I think he did it for spite. Would have brought 800,000 barrels of oil to this country every single day. Joe Biden then stopped all new energy leases on federal land, and in Wyoming we have a lot of federal land. He did it in a way that was blatantly illegal. A federal judge actually ordered Joe Biden to follow the law, to sell energy leases. Follow the law, Mr. President. Now, as of today, Joe Biden has leased fewer acres of federal land for energy than any president in modern times. And he raised the royalty rate for oil and gas development on federal lands. Now, this is the fee that the government collects for energy that's produced on federal lands. He raised it by half, and he did it overnight. These higher fees will get passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. And, oh, by the way, people are noticing the price at the pump is going up again. Joe Biden also raised taxes on natural gas by billions of dollars, raised taxes on coal by $1 billion as well. As a nation today, we're still producing about 2 million barrels of oil less than was projected we would be producing every day a number of years ago, before the pandemic. With lower production and higher taxes, it is no wonder that energy prices have been painful for the American people, punishing for the American people who are just trying to make ends meet. Working families have lost nearly $3,000 specifically because of Joe Biden's radical left-wing energy policies. They're paying a lot more than that for additional causes of inflation, but on energy alone, about $3,000 more than they should have spent under a normal situation. And who've been the big winners under all of this? Well, regrettably, it's been China. We're less independent, less competitive, and more dependent on China. This is compared to the day that Joe Biden took office. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, Mr. President. First, Joe Biden ended America's role in helping developing countries, other developing countries, explore for energy. Many countries, very poor, but they do have massive energy resources. They just need some help in getting to use them. So millions of people could have benefited and lifted out of poverty if we had helped them use the energy that they already have. Joe Biden stubbornly refuses. As a result, now these countries who need money to develop their energy resources, what are they doing? Go talk to a high school class. Joe Biden ought to try that. They'll tell them what's happening. Those countries are turning to China. More and more countries, of course, then will owe money to China. We know China uses debt and loans as a weapon. More debt to China means more control by China over all these additional countries. But Joe Biden won't let us in the United States help these countries or help the World Bank or help other lending institutions lend to those countries, and we see it all over Africa, because Joe Biden's too pure and he doesn't like their energy. So he just turns them right over to China for predatory lending. Joe Biden's obsession with electric vehicles also is turning over American power and money to China. The batteries in electric vehicles require a specific set of critical minerals. Specific set of critical minerals that go into the batteries of electric vehicles. Well, we can mine it in this country. Oh, no, we can't. Joe Biden says, nope, don't mine it in America. He's actually shutting down mining in this country and has been doing it since the day he took office. We're not going to let you use the minerals that are critical for the electric vehicles that he wants us to use come from the United States. So where are we going to go? Oh, but let's send more money to China. Supply and demand, our demand goes up, China has it to supply, prices go up as well. Just in the past few weeks, Mr. President, Joe Biden has shut down proposed copper mines in Minnesota and in Alaska. Well, where are we going to go get the minerals for the electric vehicles that Joe Biden and the Democrats want us to buy? China and countries under the influence of China. China produced 3/4 of all the lithium-ion batteries. China also has 70% of the world's production capacity for the key parts of EV batteries. China has a majority of the world's lithium, majority of the world's cobalt, a majority of the world's graphite processing and refining capacity. All of these are necessary for the electric vehicles that the Democrats and Joe Biden say we must buy. Where are these going to come from? There's only one place, and they won't let us have it from America. They won't let us use what we have here. China now dominates copper and cobalt mining in places like the Congo. The conditions at many of these mines, and this has been widely reported, are inhumane. Child labor, brutal conditions. These are not like the mines that we have here in the United States, the mines like we have in Wyoming. Our mines in Wyoming and the United States are technically sophisticated and professional. Many of the mines and the miners in the Congo are not professional at all. We're talking about young mothers working for a few dollars a day, controlled by China, and that's Joe Biden's answer to electric vehicles and every Democrat's answer to electric vehicles. These young mothers often bring their babies with them to the mines. Not in the United States. Oh, no, we're too pure here in the United States to be able to mine for the chemicals that are needed for the electric vehicles. So Joe Biden wants mothers to take babies into the mines in Congo for the minerals for the electric vehicle that he is mandating that we drive here in the future. So what happened to these mothers and these babies? Well, they inhale toxic cobalt all day long. According to a United Nations report, 40,000 children are scavenging for cobalt in the Congo for the electric vehicles, so China can sell us the chemicals that Joe Biden and the Democrats will not let us get out of the ground here in the United States. Most people would call this criminal. Women and children in Africa are inhaling toxic minerals so the climate elites in San Francisco can drive their electric vehicles. I guess that's the American dream. That's the Democrat dream for America. Force these people into this kind of labor so they can drive the electric vehicles of their dreams. Now, China also sells less expensive EVs, and they're for sale all over Europe. Well, they may be on the road in San Francisco and in Manhattan in just a few years. And then there is the bloodshed and brutality that China uses to make solar panels. Joe Biden loves solar panels as much as he loves wind turbines. Well, there's a shortage of solar panels in this country right now. Why? Because of the law we passed 2 years ago to stop buying Chinese products made by forced labor. Well, solar panels require something called polysilicon. Nearly half of the world's polysilicon is made now by forced labor in China. Democrats have to choose between their green energy fairy tales and upholding basic human rights. And it seems like the church that they worship, the church of wind and solar and wishful thinking, is what they've chosen over human rights. I hope Democrats agree with me that we should not make a green transition on the backs of forced labor. Democrats seem to feel more guilt about burning oil than about solar panels made by slave labor. Hard to imagine. This is just another in a long line of Democrat delusions. As if this all wasn't enough, Joe Biden is even giving our tax dollars to China. 2 weeks ago, today, the Department of Energy announced that Joe Biden was sending another $1.6 million to a green energy company with ties to China. The company is called LanzaTech. It's a carbon capture company. Joe Biden had already given them $10 million. He gave them the money right after they signed a partnership with China's official energy company, Sinopec. Well, this company, LanzaTech, has disclosed that, quote, the Chinese government may intervene or influence our operations at any time. So let's get this straight. Joe Biden's giving money to a company that says the Chinese government may intervene or influence our operations at any time. What do we know about this company? Well, we know that it has some ties to Democrat Party's top donors. The top donors. People that contribute to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, members of this body who go and ask them for more money. Who's on the board? Well, former President Obama's campaign manager is a member of the board. Is this just a coincidence that then Joe Biden would move money, U.S. taxpayer dollars, to that company? Maybe it's not. The Department of Energy has announced a $200 million grant to a battery manufacturer with close ties to the Communist Chinese government. The company's financial filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission admit, and I had these filings at the Energy Committee just last week to show these to a secretary in the Department of Energy. The filings say this. Now remember, this is a company to which the Democrat Department of Energy announced a $200 million grant. The FEC filing says that China, quote, exerts substantial influence over the manner in which we must conduct our business activities and may intervene at any time with no notice. In other words, the company admits that it is controlled by the Communist Chinese Party, the Chinese Communist Party controlling the company, U.S. Department of Energy, $200 million grant. So I wrote to the Department of Energy about the department's review process for this grant. How can you do this? It says it in the filings. Finally, last Thursday, I got a response. It says that now, this year, even though they did the grant last year, $200 million, now, this year, just now, they are going to do a due diligence review of the grant. That's from their letter. My question is, why don't we do a due diligence review in this country before we announce we're going to give $200 million to a company so completely tied and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party? Why? Why doesn't the Department of Energy do their homework? So last week, the Deputy Secretary of Energy testified before the Energy Committee. He said money hasn't yet gone out the door. Look, I hope he's right. I hope money hasn't gone out the door. We need to stop it now before it goes out the door. We don't need to send any more money, our tax dollars, to China. We want carbon capture. I'd say come to Wyoming. You have to put money in these companies. We do it in Wyoming. We have a School of Energy Resources. We have a wonderful location. Being done in the right way. They had a whole X Prize granted to the research being done at the University of Wyoming through the School of Energy Resources. Administration seems, when it comes to energy, would much rather go to China than go to the United States. That's Joe Biden's view of the world right now. Wyoming is ready to do carbon capture better than anybody in the world. Not sure why the administration turns to China rather than to America. Just like I don't know why they go to Iran, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Russia in the past for energy rather than in America. Joe Biden's policies continue to rob the American people and pay off China. Joe Biden even sold 1 million barrels of oil from our emergency petroleum reserve to China. Then he said he was doing all of us a favor because it was going to bring down prices. This is a president who has been wrong and wrong and wrong. I've introduced legislation to ensure we never sell any of our emergency stockpile to China ever again. The House of Representatives have already passed legislation to do that. The legislation was actually bipartisan. I think 100 Democrats voted for it. Why doesn't Chuck Schumer bring it to the floor of the Senate today? Why not? Why isn't it here? 100 Democrats joined Republicans that say we shouldn't do this. People in this body get it. The White House clearly doesn't. The Department of Energy clearly doesn't. The administration doesn't. Joe Biden is held hostage by the far left of his party. Our strategic petroleum reserve is for us, not for our enemies. America's energy policy is supposed to be for us, not for our enemies. It's not what we've gotten from this president. Well, next week I'm going to introduce legislation to ban administration officials for going to work for China. For 2 years, Joe Biden has strangled American energy production. At the same time, he has made us more dependent on China for critical minerals and for so much of what this nation needs. It is time for Joe Biden and the Democrats in this body to remember who we work for, and that is the American people.